Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. We're very glad you're with us this morning. It's September 17th, 2021. Our agenda this morning, we'll start out with success stories. We'll then go to have everybody put their 30-second introductions into the chat window. We'll then go to committee reports. We'll hear about workshop, job fairs, the practice interview team, the interview success workshop, the career tip of the week, and then we will have our main event around 10 o'clock or so. If your full name, let's see, I'm looking at everybody's names, everybody looks fine, so I'll skip these couple slides here. If you have questions throughout the morning, please open up the chat box. Please just put your questions right into the Zoom chat window. For those watching on Facebook, please just enter your questions into the comment field. I am monitoring that feed and we'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window do not appear in the recording. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. In 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org to help those who are unemployed in the DFW area. In 2012, I started a second website, careerusa.org, to help people around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, and you'll hear more about that in just a second. Well, we like to start the meeting off with good news. Nobody emailed me this week, so is there anybody out there who has landed? Anybody has good news they would like to share? Going once, going twice. Anyone? All right, well, we'll keep on moving here. All right, what we'd like for everybody to do now, if you will, please go to the, open up your chat window or the comment box, comment field on Facebook, and please enter your name, comma, phone number, comma, email address, comma, position you're looking for, comma, 2 or 3 target companies, and then hit the return key. And what we will do is I will get all that information. I will put that in an email to everybody who's attending the meeting this morning, and I'll get that out to everybody. And hopefully you'll go over the list this afternoon or this weekend and look and say, who can I help on this list? Who out there do I know? Who can I help do that? So we'll give everybody an opportunity to do that. We'll put 30 seconds on the clock. And for those people on Facebook, if you put your personal information in the comment field, I will be sure to delete that information immediately after this meeting is over. All right, it's time to hear about job, career fairs, training, and workshops in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Good morning, Eldon.
Good morning, Jeff, and good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. As Jeff indicated, I'm going to tell you about this week's career and job fairs and special workshops or events. The information I'm about to provide comes from the calendar tab from the website careerdfw.org, which is on the screen in front of you. As you can see by the different colors, there are many calendars, many different subject categories associated with the calendar that talk about all the different events going on throughout the Metroplex for the coming weeks and months. All right, having said that, I go through these items pretty quickly, so if you hear something that catches your ear, I would urge you to go to the calendar, click on that item, and you will usually find a link or more information about that item. All right, this week's career and job fairs. The Dallas Police Department civilian hiring event will be held at 1400 Botham Jean Boulevard in Dallas on Saturday, September 18th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And it says walk-ins are welcome. Participants are encouraged to apply early online, and there is a link for folks to do that. The United Recycling event will be held Saturday, September 18th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at Christ United Methodist Church, and that's at 3101 Coit Road in Plano. If you have any old computers or whatever that you need to recycle, that's the place to take it. It will cost you a little bit of money to have them salvage those for you, but if you're like me and have closets full of this stuff, it's always a good idea to go. The Gaylord Texan September hiring event will be held Saturday, September 18th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Gaylord Texan Resort and Convention Center located at 1501 Garland Trail in Grapevine. Please apply online before attending. Sorry about that, telemarketer. There'll be a virtual job fair Wednesday, September 22nd from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. The virtual job fair is co-hosted by Workforce Solutions for Tarrant County, the City of Arlington, the City of Fort Worth, and Tarrant County, and there's a link on the calendar to find out how to participate. There'll be another Gaylord Texan September hiring event on Wednesday, September 22nd from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., also at the Gaylord Texan Resort and Convention Center at 1501 Gaylord Trail in Grapevine. Again, you're reminded to please apply online before attending. Finally, the Dallas Career Fair by Choice Career Fairs will be held at the Doubletree Hotel at 2015 Market Center Boulevard in Dallas on Thursday, September 23rd from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. This week's special workshops or events, actually just finishing up, is the online Third Friday Internet of Things Special Interest Group Breakfast. That breakfast starts at 7:40 and ends at 9 a.m. I mentioned it last week, and if you're interested in the Internet of Things, I would urge you to participate in that. They usually have some pretty good speakers and cover some pretty good information. Online, LinkedIn Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Join Locke Alderson, Terry Sullivan, Ruth Lipsky, or Kurt Vondemutter each week for an online session on LinkedIn. These run on Tuesdays, September 21st from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. and every subsequent Tuesday at the same time. There's a Zoom link and a Facebook link for those if you wish to participate. The online CSN Recruiter Roundup will be held Tuesday, September 21st from 6:45 p.m. to 8:15 p.m. This recruiting event is on the third Tuesday of each month, and it consists of a panel of very well-known local area recruiters, including Gail Houston, Rex Showett, Abby Kohut, Paul Cameron, Rick Martinez, Andy Cook, Mary Leone, and Shelley Casino. The events are created to answer questions posed by the job seeker, as the events will be very interactive. This monthly event will service job seeker and employee questions. This is hosted ultimately by Foster Williams, and there is a Zoom link for that. The Who You Know Career Transition Summit will be held Wednesday, September 22nd from 10 a.m. to noon. This event requires registration, and it is hosted by Foster Williams. And if you don't know Foster, I really urge you to get to know Foster Williams. Online interviewing Wednesdays at 1 p.m. This workshop is hosted by Mark McDonald, who's the leader of our pit crew, and Walt Glass, who runs our interview success workshop. This will be Wednesday, September 22nd from 1 p.m. to 2:30. This week's session is session 8 of a 10-part series, asking questions in the interview. If you missed a few of these, these are on the YouTube channel for, I believe, Career DFW. Mark will give you more information about that, but this is a very interesting series and has a lot of very valuable information. I urge you to participate. There's a Zoom link and a Facebook link to do so. There'll be an online networking webinar on Thursday, September 23rd from 1 p.m. to 2:15 p.m. And this is one in which you will join Career DFW and CareerUSA.org on the second and fourth Thursdays from 1 to 2:15 for the networking seminar. They have different speakers each session talking about networking. And there is a Zoom link and a Facebook link for that. And that's it for this week.
Eldon, thank you very, very much. All right, if you know somebody who just was unemployed, I know the numbers last week, 320,000 people filed first time for unemployment benefits this past week. If you know somebody who just got laid off, they're not sure what to do, tell them about Career DFW, Career USA, the workshops they're putting on, and you know, the services that are on the website. Share your knowledge of what you've learned over the last weeks and months of joining us on Fridays or other days during the week. All right, the practice interview team. Mark McDonald is not with us today. He actually is in Utah this week, and I think his wife is running an Ironman up there. So They're up there in Utah. I know he's emailing because I see he's put a couple pit crew informations out for the week. The practice interview team, this is a great way to practice your interviewing skills. As they like to say, practice early, practice often. What you need to do is you need to send a resume and a job description, and it doesn't have to be a job that you've applied to. It could just be something you see out on the internet and go, that would be the perfect job for me. Send those 2 items in along with some times that you're available 2 to 3 days out ahead of time, and Mark will schedule you an interview. It'll be a panel interview with 2 or 3 other people. They all have been hiring managers. Most of them are unemployed themselves. They're doing this to help give back to the community and give back to you. But by practicing your interviewing skills, it's a great way to do this. So you want to send your resume and your job description, the times you're available, send it to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. Everything is totally free. They don't charge anything for this. So it's a great way to do things. Practice early. You can practice as many times as you want. They've had people who they'll practice for the first round interview, then they'll come back a couple days later knowing that there'll be a second round, because as long as the hiring team knows where you are in the interview process, they will tailor the resume. They will tailor the interview to customize it to what you need. The interviews are recorded. You'll get a copy of that you can go back and watch and see how you did. So it's a great way to practice early, practice often, the Dallas Practice Interview Team. Also, they are also offering one-way interviews. So if you'd like to, I'm sure some people out there, you apply for a job, they send you a link, they say, here, go follow this link, and they'll ask you 4, 5, 6, 7 questions. And it's just you talking to the camera. It's really, really weird. There's no feedback. You don't know what's going on. You don't know how anybody else is doing. So if you'd like to practice that, the pit crew offers that. I offer it, and Walt Glass also offers it. So any of the 3 of us can offer a pre-built one-way interview. Just reach out to any one of the 3 of us to be able to do that. All right. Good morning, Walt.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Friday. If it's 9:30 and I'm on this session with Jeff, it must be Friday. How do you tell what day of the week it is anymore for people who are retired, and also candidates who are looking at 7-day weeks, not 5-day weeks in their job search? Well, I also offer some help with interviewing. So I have some questions for you this morning, and most of these can be answered after the free interview success workshop that I offer. So my first question to you is, are you truly prepared for an interview? Now, let me define prepared. Prepared means you feel confident, you feel energetic, you have interest in the interview, you look forward to it, and rather than trying to just get through it and get out of Dodge. So this workshop will help you answer these types of questions. One more question that I like to ask is, how much time did you spend on your resume? I'll bet you spent tons of time on it. So how much time have you spent on interviewing and practicing that, where the rubber meets the road, where you really have to do a good job? You worked hard on your resume, you worked hard on your marketing, your materials, done some networking, things like that. Now it's the interview time. What's the most critical part? So I can help you with that. So do you know what you really need to do to get prepared? And what does selling ourselves really mean? Have you considered what you're going to say in your greeting, in your opening, in your closing? Because we want to focus on differentiation. I've done quite a few interviews, and the openings, the greetings are almost always the same. They're very boring. They are not different from other candidates. And it's our chance to really set the tone for the meeting and differentiate ourselves. So how can we do that? What types of questions might be asked? And what type of options, strategies, structures you might have in order to respond to that? The Interview Success Workshop has 11 categories of questions, and you'll be asked 1 question out of each category. So it's not a smooth interview. It's kind of choppy, but it's meant to understand the fundamentals of selling ourselves. And I'll define that now for you. It's who you are, what you do, and how you can help. I can remember after 25 years, my first interview that I got, the person sat across from the table and said, well, Walter, what can you do for me? I had no clue. I had no idea. I look at interviews. How much is it? I am on 5, maybe 10%. How much is it? I do almost 90%. How much is it? I help very little, very small percentage, which is one of the main reasons we're getting hired. So how can we learn to respond to questions in a way that says, what's the motive? Why this question? Why now? Why from this person? And what are my options to answer and sell those 3 things? That's what we can cover. Do you know how to really establish a connection and build rapport with your interview, which is what we all want to do? How can you really demonstrate your expertise and value to a particular company, to a particular role? So again, it's free. You have to be registered to attend. Look me up on LinkedIn under the About section. Gives you a few more details. Send me an email to my Yahoo email address, and I'll send you some availability dates to get you registered. Only do 2 at a time. You interview each other. I provide the questions when you're in the interviewer role, and I take notes or responses. I also video the interview. You'll get that video, you'll get a handout, and you'll get another hour-long video going over everything in the handout to answer the questions that I just talked about with you. So why do we have to feel stressed, anxiety in an interview, particularly in a practice interview? Well, we don't. All we're trying to do is improve ourselves, do some learning, but we can do it without that stress. And so come to the Interview Success Workshop where we can have learning without squirming.
You want to talk about what's coming up this Wednesday?
Yes. Okay. Wednesday, we're going to have, was it questions?
Asking questions in the interview.
Yeah. Asking questions in the interview. Do you realize that you will be graded by the questions you ask in an interview? So what type of questions should you be asking? Which are the most important questions you should be asking? What's the whole idea about questions? And how can we get into that conversational interview through questions? A lot of us will sometimes just say, my mindset walking in is, I need to respond to questions. We like to move from that mindset to including the response, but also adding other information, other pieces of things, and questions. They ask us questions and they have a list. We should have a list. We should have them prioritized so that we can understand what the role is about and if it's a fit for us as well. So I encourage you to take a look at our asking questions, help you do exactly what we're talking about in building that rapport and connections.
And that's next Wednesday at 1 o'clock. All right, time for a poem.
Are you tired of the unemployed condition? Then make practice interviewing your mission. Stay away from that cask. Put up that flask. It's the key to beating the competition.
Thank you very, very much, Walt. All right, it's time to hear from our career tip of the week. This week, Deborah Baker is with us to give us the tip of the week. So thank you very much for being with us.
You're welcome, Jeff. I just want to say thank you for giving a career tip of the week with a name in it that I don't know how to pronounce. So I want to feel free to put a little laughing emoji in the chat box every time I say it, because I can't guarantee I'll say it the same way twice. But here we go. How to handle a pandemic-related gap on your resume. Early in the pandemic, more than 22 million jobs were lost, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics. While breaks in employment can traditionally be red flags to hiring managers, you shouldn't be too concerned about a pause given the current situation. Don't worry about it, said Vicki Salerni, career expert for JobSite Monster. It's more about how you handle the gap and what you should do. We have experienced such a collective, global, unprecedented situation that if you do have a gap, you're not alone. Here's how to handle potential employers. Be prepared to address it. If a recruiter or hiring manager brings up your time out of the labor market, keep your response short and refocus on the future. Assume they're going to ask, said Salerni. Be prepared to say what happened, and more importantly, why you are a strong candidate for the role you are pursuing. She suggested saying something like, I worked in hospitality, and as you know, the industry was severely impacted, and so I took some time off and reevaluated. The key is to be prepared with your answer. Don't be self-conscious about it. It might take practice to come across as confident, says Christy Knoll, a career strategist and co-author of Your Personal Career Coach. You don't have to be sheepish or embarrassed or concerned about it as much. You don't want to inadvertently come across that way. Fill the gap with something else. Showcase what you've done with your time out of the labor market, whether it was additional education, training and certification courses, networking, or volunteering. Not every job on a resume has to be paid, said Noel. It is applicable to the job you are trying to apply for. Include that. For instance, if you volunteer to do marketing for a nonprofit and are looking for a marketing position, she suggested including it as experience. Look for specific skills or requirements in job postings that are appealing and take this time to fill any gaps. Consider practicing some professional development skills, said Kyle Elliott, a career coach and founder of caffeinatedkyle.com, who suggested LinkedIn, Coursera, edX, and Udemy to help learn new skills. Focus on some of those qualifications that job postings are asking for. This way, if the break comes up during an interview, you can easily pivot the conversation to focus on your skills and strengths. Show what you have already done with your time since learning, and know you are a top candidate for the job and why you are interested in it and how your skills and experiences are appropriate for the role you are pursuing. Always bring it back to the job and why you are the best possible candidate. Leverage your resume and cover letter. Take the time to tailor each resume and cover letter to a job posting. That means using the same keywords that are in the posting, detailing specific results of your work, and also answering any questions that a recruiter might have, especially if you're looking to enter a new industry. Connect the dots for the recruiter, especially when they are only looking at your resume and cover letter for less than 5 seconds. Adding an executive summary at the top of a resume can help make an employment break less glaring. The summary should be no more than a few sentences and can include transferable skills, past experience, and job posting keywords. Use the cover letter to help address the potential concerns and highlight your experience and skills and how they're applicable to the job. The cover letter is the valuable real estate. It shouldn't be more than a few paragraphs. It should be a way to say, during the pandemic, I decided to switch my career path, leveraging my top strengths and skills of XYZ. And that's why I'm interested in pursuing this job, because I think I could be an asset to your organization. There is no way around it. The last 17 months have been tough, but try to avoid focusing on the past. Avoid being negative, suggested Elliott. A lot of people end up coming to interviews from a place of negativity. Sometimes they've been out of work and the pandemic has been super stressful. Instead, focus on explaining why you are drawn to the role and detail your skills and qualifications. Don't badmouth your former employer. Don't focus so much on the past that you aren't able to pivot into the future. You want to demonstrate you are enthusiastic, passionate, and positive.
Thank you very, very much. That's the career tip of the week. You can find that on the Career DFW and Career USA websites. Deborah, thank you very much for reading it this week. All right, let's see here. All right, so coming up in just a couple minutes, we'll hear from Pete Havel, Fireproofing Your Career. He wrote the book, The Arsonist in the Office. So how to, when you land your next job, how to not sabotage coming in as a new employee. Upcoming sessions we have coming up next Friday, we're going to hear from Walt Glass. He's going to talk about informational interviewing. Very, very important. You've got to network. You got to get out. You got to talk to people. How do you do that? How do you reach out to other people? So information interviewing next Friday morning. On the first Friday of the month, as we do every Friday, every first Friday, we'll do open forum. We'll talk about whatever it is you'd like to talk about. And then the second, on October 8th, we're going to talk about accountability groups, how to form them, where to form them, who should be on them, who shouldn't be on them, what do you do during the accountability group. So if you're not part of one, this is a great session to join us, and maybe you'll find some people online here who'd like to start an accountability group with you. You can do it on Zoom. You don't have to do it in person. All right, it's time for our main event. I met Pete a year ago when I'm not really sure how we even connected, but somehow somebody told me about Pete, and his talk is going to be about fireproofing your career. So Pete, I'll let you introduce yourself, and thank you for being with us.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Good to be here this morning. Everybody, it's great to be with y'all. And I know from talking with Jeff previously, we have a lot of people on here who are at all different stages of their career, but have kind of joined together, whether you're in your just got out of your first job or maybe moving on to folks that are much more senior in their careers. So what I'm going to be talking about today with all of you is talking a little bit about how you protect yourself in a new job in a tough environment. But I wanted to share with you a little bit this morning about my journey as well. You don't find yourself, excuse me, a little bit hoarse this morning. You don't find yourself writing a book on surviving the toxic workplace and dealing with tough situations if you haven't been in one. And so I'm going to be telling you a little bit about my experience, what I learned, and some things that I think are going to be helpful to some of you. Everything may not be relevant, but I think most everybody's going to find some things that are going to be important in your journey through what can be a challenging time. So let me move on. Hopefully I will do it correctly without blowing up all of Zoom. Let's go to my presentation here. One second as I adjust to this. And there we go. Can everybody see that?
Yep, you're good to go.
Good deal. We landed safely. All right. So yeah, talking about fireproofing, which is a term that I use constantly to describe just those smart things of how to protect yourself from getting burned. I spent much of my career as a lobbyist, and just give you a little bit of background. Found myself after having been a lobbyist, a political consultant for some top organizations that you'd be familiar with. I had been that advocate. I had been in some challenging situations, dealing with tough personalities, with making deals, a lot of no safety net under me in trying to get some things done. But I found myself in a situation many years ago in a tough job that really rocked my career. As a lobbyist, I always thought of it as being kind of that mom and apple pie and country kind of thing. I know how many of y'all view it more in terms of shady dealings and a bunch of snakes, but I really enjoyed the work and found myself, thinking I could handle just about anything until I took that detour into a wrong job. I needed to find something quickly, and I found myself in a deeply toxic situation, learned what weak leadership can do to an organization. And when you have leaders who truly can't make the hard decisions, you as an employee, whether you're also in leadership or in management, or you're just that first rung of the employee ladder, you've got some challenges in front of you. So I'm going to share a little bit about what I learned from that experience. And long story short, spoiler alert here, I found myself out of a job for really the first time for any significant amount of time when I spoke up about some deeply disturbing bad behavior that was going on in my organization. Went to my leadership, asked them to address it, and when I did, I found myself out of a job with no story I could tell to any HR representative. My choices were either be silent, to lie, or to tell them a story that has been great for my book sales. Hit the top of Amazon's charts a couple times, partly because of the story and experience I ran into. Makes for great copy, but does not make for great chances to find that next opportunity, because as you probably hear about constantly, what you say to HR, what you don't say to HR and to your hiring managers matters greatly. And if you don't have a story you can share that's not going to light their hair on fire in the interview, you've got some challenges. It's that book that Jeff mentioned. It's The Arsonist in the Office. And I learned quite a few things about how to protect myself. Really, it was for me after I left that job, after I received the threats, the legal threats from my previous employer, the damage that can be done in a toxic workplace of losing confidence and being unsure about how to handle things. Maybe those lessons you learned about how you may have been overconfident about your skills. Maybe you weren't telling your story inside your organization. I talk a lot about that. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, as I mentioned throughout, but one of the real opportunities I've had, and I would share it with you, because whether you're in unemployment currently or whether you're going through a planned job change, you find yourself thinking at times, what the heck am I doing here? Why did this happen to me? Where did I go wrong? And I would offer you today, and I'm going to share a little bit more about it in just a few moments, looking at those opportunities that seem like the worst things that are happening in your life, but are there opportunities that can come from it? And for me, I've been able to, especially with the pandemic, maybe slowing down in some areas, or at least people starting to step out and gather a bit more. I've taken that experience of being in a toxic organization and going through absolute hell professionally, and the stress puts on you personally, to be able to help some really culturally challenged organizations fix themselves. I'm now getting to work with police chief groups and fire organizations around the country, folks that are in tough environments every day on the outside, but when those problems are brought internally, it causes a lot of stress and a lot of problems. And obviously, we see things in the news that that at times come from cultures that are punitive, that are deeply toxic. So really been able to take a difficult thing and turn it into something positive. And as anyone out there knows, and I'm sure we've got people that just are fresh out of maybe getting laid off or terminated for some reason, or you're just looking for that next opportunity. Maybe you went into one, it didn't work out. What do? I'm going to talk with you this morning about some things that I think are going to maybe provide you just a little bit of guidance on some things to look for where you're thinking, boy, there's nothing good that can come out of this experience. And I want to tell you that really there are some good things that are going to come from it. Going to give you 10 things to know. The old David Letterman type of thing. We're going to be counting down 10 down to the number one thing to know from that unemployment experience, the job search experience that I think is going to be helpful to you. Number one, number 10, social media matters. I know you hear that a lot. You guys talk about getting your LinkedIn profile up and running. I would tell you some other things that you may want to think about when it comes to social media. And that is, if you're not comfortable with getting yourself on video and learning the skills to do even quick little hits on your LinkedIn page about things you learned, things that you're passionate about in the job, you're missing out on an opportunity. Why? Videos get you clicks. And if you know some content, some things that you care about, let's say you've been in management for a long time, you're looking for that next management opportunity, being that person who is sharing their perspective, sounds articulate, sounds confident, man, you sound like somebody that people want to hire when you do that. Take that advantage. Use as much video as possible. Get comfortable with it. It's going to increase your confidence levels. It's also going to make you better on social media. So LinkedIn, Twitter, we're comfortable. Talk about your skills. Talk about things that get you going, and it's going to help you. Of course, you're going to want to be active on there. You're going to be wanting to make connections. That's all the basic stuff. But just that tip on social media, get active on video, and it's going to help you down the line. Number 9, you're looking at this and thinking, dude, how dare you tell me that my friends aren't going to help you through a job search? What I mean by that, that don't count on your friends to be helping you. Look at it as a bonus. But they say that 85% of people find jobs through their networks. It doesn't mean you're always going to find those jobs through your close friends. Reach out to your friends, let them know what you're doing, but don't feel betrayed. Don't feel anxiety when all of your friends aren't immediately jumping in. It happens. And frankly, people, much like whether it's a death in the family or a relationship breaking up or anything else, people sometimes feel a little awkward being around that friend who's going through conflict. Understand it, and it's going to make the rest of the process feel a little bit better, and that you're setting your expectations probably as accurately as you need to, because not everybody's going to be there for you. I learned that, thought, man, I've got so many contacts, so many people have helped over the years, and those that were truly helpful, a lot of them came from people that I didn't know that well, and helped me once I understood those dynamics, helped me salvage some relationships where I felt really frustrated at first where people weren't jumping in. Just know that it happens. Number 8, desperate people do desperate things. Some of you are going to find yourselves a new job quickly. Others of you, especially when you reach a certain age, or whether you reach a certain salary level or experience level, are going to find it more frustrating. You've heard about the pyramid, or I guess they say it's more the funnel type of process, that the either the higher you get in terms of rank in your company, or the more salary you get each year, or the more experience you have, which translates into you've got some managers who may not have the strength as leaders to want to hire you. Maybe they feel a little bit uncomfortable with that. They don't feel confident about hiring that highly experienced leader. You may find yourself getting desperate at times and thinking, I need to pull the trigger on something. I've got to do something here to just get the money flowing. And you're right, and you need to. But I would tell you what I mean by this number 8, desperate people doing desperate things. You don't want to be that person pulling the trigger on a job that frankly you don't want to be in for either the short term or the long term. I would encourage you, get a kitchen cabinet together today if you don't have one. Groups like this are fantastic for it. But I would also encourage you, find that group of friends that are trusted, that understand a little bit about what you do, who you are, what your needs are, and work with those people through the process. It's going to do a few things. 1, it's going to help you screen opportunities. 2, friends can tell you things that a stranger maybe can't. Maybe they tell you, look, your elevator pitch needs some work, or that comment you just made about your experience makes no sense to me. Talk to some people you trust. Tell them you're putting them in your cabinet and you're going to need their help over the next few months. Those close friends that you can count on, bring them in now, because you want to use them as your guide to help you not make the mistakes that happen when you absolutely need to find that next job. I've been there. I've made those mistakes, and I encourage you, be that person that that's collected those friends and is not going to do the dumb things. It happens in a lot of processes. 7, do healthy things. I know when I was out of work, was going through the journey that I did, that frankly was much longer than a year. I found myself wanting to spend virtually every hour of the day doing something, because I felt like if I'm not working now, I'm going to be, just hurting my cause, hurting my family's future, those types of things. Get out there and exercise. Get out there and regularly plan to be with friends. Get to church, or whatever, it keeps you strong, keeps you focused. keeps you positive. Those healthy things. Mental health, you're going to be running into challenges at some point down the line as you get into 6 months, 9 months, 12 months of job searching. If you're out of a job currently, I would encourage you, keep your circle strong, keep it close, and reach out to people when you're hurting. Heck, with COVID alone right now, and I deal a lot with, as I mentioned, police departments, fire departments, tough cultures. Frankly, even some of the best cultures in the world work with some of them right now, and some of those are hurting. Their cultures are struggling, and they've got people that are coming back after having worked remotely that have isolated themselves. We're all hurting right now, but you add maybe that job search process where you've either got to desperately get out of where you are now, or you need to find that opportunity that you don't have going currently. Talk with some friends and reach out and let them know that you may be leaning on them a little bit during this time. You're going to need it whether you know it or not. 6, find value in this moment. Where I'm going with that is, if you had told me I would look back through the journey that I did, finding my career absolutely blown up, trying to figure out, is there any turning the corner on the predicament that I found myself in, speaking up, threatened in my job, and never knowing if I was ever going to find another opportunity in the career that I'd spent over 20 years in. Couldn't have thought of a darn thing that good that I could have gotten out of it. But I'll tell you, there's some great things that come from these game-changing kind of moments, the moments that you don't want to be in, but in the end, you may think, you know what? I can't believe I was there. I hated every minute of it, but gosh, I got some good stuff out of it. The friends you make, the friends that you will know for a lifetime, they returned your calls. The inner strength that you didn't know that you had, you're going to have it. There's that old saying of, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. There's some truth to that. At times, I found myself not wanting to be as strong as I was getting. Hearing no a lot, getting into that round of finalists for different jobs, but then people would sit down and start talking about, so why did you leave your last employer? And I knew I was cooked because I didn't have a good answer for that. And I was going to coach after coach, and they didn't have good answers either. But you find value in this moment. Life slows down. The things that whether you hate the amount of time you have on your hands, you may be able to invest more time in your family, in your faith, in developing your skills than you ever have before. So I would encourage you to find something valuable about this, because it will absolutely feel like hell at times, but you look at the opportunity to better yourself and maybe strengthen some parts of your life that weren't there before. Something good can come out of it. 5 is SWOT analysis. There may be good reasons why you were looking for a new job currently. Some of them may be, you were, your company was stupid. They couldn't see the great value you brought to the table. They may have missed out on all the excellence that you brought. It also may be that you made some mistakes down the line, and this is going to be a time for you to think through that. What your strengths are. Talked about social media. Is that a strength, or is that a huge weakness right now for you? If it's a weakness, there's lots of different opportunities for you to up your game in that area. The opportunities. I know I talk constantly with people about their fear of public speaking, and is that an impediment to getting ahead? Have they ever spent time to understand their culture, which to me is one of the most underrated things that is a weakness of many people, because they go in with their assumptions of how people get ahead in a company, and they may be absolutely wrong about that. Or they may have had some assumptions like the ones that I ran into with my experience that caused me to write my book, thinking, leadership has got my back at in tough situations when I'm right. You know what? That wasn't the case at all. I concocted that in my own mind that surely they'd be looking out for the organization and for me. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it's not at all, especially if there's bad things going on within the company, and there may be a game of chess that you don't even understand is being played. Cowardice may be seeping in a lot of ways. Self-preservation, I learned, is really the key to understanding just about anyone's decisions in toxic environments. That they are there to survive. They're there possibly to advance and create power centers, but they may not be looking out for you. My understanding about HR changed greatly. That I looked at them as kind of an independent arbiter, that they were Switzerland, and no, that's not the case. They may be fine people, they may be strongly personally ethical people, but understanding that their job is to protect the needs of the organization can be a variable that swings a lot if you're not careful, because your issue that you're bringing up may be something that's important to you, may be important to a lot of people in the country, but if that's not shared by your leadership, or your leadership is scared about what you're talking about getting out into the public sphere, you've got a problem on your hands and your job is at risk. Understanding what you did wrong, understanding what may have led to you being out of a job is a great thing to know. I would encourage you to go through that process of how did I get here, and what do I need to work on, and what are those things that I can use to get to my next job.
Pete, before you leave, can you back up just that slide for a second?
You bet.
Can you tell everybody what SWOT is? Somebody put it in the chat window, but I thought it'd be good for you to, if you explain, because some of us don't know that.
Yeah, that is a great question. Thanks. And I will, I don't have and Jeff, please let me know if there's any other questions like that as well. Thank you for doing that. SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So that is something that that organizations do regularly when looking at those areas. Yeah, strengths, what you're good at. Weaknesses, obviously, self-explanatory. Those opportunities. What are you doing now? Maybe it looks exactly like what you're going to be doing in the future. Going to a lateral move or something that takes you on to that next opportunity. But the threats, you sometimes don't know those until you know them. And for me, it was an overconfidence in myself and not understanding what my culture was up to. That when good people are leaving, that's a sign that there's trouble taking place. When people don't want to offer feedback, it's another sign that there's silence, a chill in the room when certain people come in, not understanding really those things in any way other than thinking, that's an isolated event. You got to look for patterns, and some of those patterns may lead to some threats in to your career. Number four. Thank you. Number four, this could be a real tough challenge. Some of you know it already. If you're looking at that job loss, or you're frustrated about that next opportunity, knowing that people love you during this time, reciprocate it, because some of you are going to go into a shell. I know I did for a while, and I had to do something to spur some activity and keeping those relationships strong, because some of us have a tendency to isolate ourselves during this time. So y'all that are on the line that are frustrated, keep keep up with this group, keep up with other groups, make regular appointments with those friends, those kitchen cabinet type of people that I talk about to keep you intact, because these are the people that are going to keep you sane during a crazy time. Number 3, value culture in your job search. There's a lot of talk about culture, ping pong tables and snacks and all those kind of things. But really, whether you've done it before or not, I would encourage you to place culture as a top priority in your organization, especially now as COVID is bringing people back into the office. Some people are switching jobs. What do they call it? The Great Resignation that we're seeing now. You look at a lot of the studies of why people are leaving, and it is that relationship that they had with their previous employers changed at some point. That maybe the company changed at some point, and it changed seriously, and it's making people reevaluate what they're thinking. Some people are just looking for a change of scenery. Other people, it's something bigger. And you need to understand not only how companies have been perceived in the past, but what's happening now. So I would encourage you, dive in as you're looking at your future employers, and go into Glassdoor and Indeed and LinkedIn. Start doing your Google searches and search engine, bringing up of names, and looking at things like, have there been lawsuits filed on certain hot button issues of sexual harassment and hostile workplace environments and those kind of things. Finding out what you're getting into, and don't be afraid to, because you should be enhancing your number of connections on social media. Dive into those and reach out to people. They may be complete strangers to you, but to find out about these jobs before you jump into the company. The next, actually, in some ways, it may be a degree worse, but going from one difficult job or one bad opportunity into a second one is a body blow. That, okay, I thought I was leaving this place that was causing me stress. Jumping into a second one is something, I don't know how you prepare for it. Some would call it bad luck, but some might also call it bad preparation on your part if you haven't done that intel search, the reconnaissance to find out what the culture is in those jobs, because it can affect you in immeasurable ways, and you don't want one bad pothole on your resume. It's much more difficult when there's a second one, and those things may not be caused by you, but there is the risk that recruiters and HR departments and hiring managers may start looking at you as being the blame for those situations. You don't want that challenge to hit you. Trust me. Number 2, get out of the house and be productive. I can tell you a little something about this, having gone through an experience that I never planned to, that changed my career path forever. Is some of you may be going into a bit of a bunker mentality and becoming a bit isolated. Maybe you find yourself, and I see nothing wrong with the people that say, look at job search as a 9-to-5 job. Get out there, finding that next opportunity your job. And that's great, unless you're spending a lot of time isolating yourself after that 9-to-5 and getting negativity in your head and not feeling productive and not contributing to your family's bottom line. All those different things can kick into your head and be absolute poison to your job search, because it starts hitting you hard. I've been there. I would encourage you, if you're in that spot, as weird as it sounds, and I said this last year, and I got some great feedback from lots of people in the group. There's nothing wrong with going out and finding one of these, whether it's a ride share job of driving some Uber, doing some part-time work, doing delivery things, finding something that's going to make you feel like you did something today, that you brought in a little bit of money. It's nothing you're going to want to necessarily put on your resume, but it's going to be something where you may be able to add some pride and some feeling that you're doing something good, and that you're helping others. For me, that was a huge motivation because I felt like I was going crazy starting at about 6 o'clock, and all I could think about was what I was going to be doing the next day and how I was going to get myself out of the job hole that I was in. And would encourage you, if you're in that spot, it's all right to go get that next job. I should say to go get a little job that is going to take up a little bit of your time and a little bit of the nervousness for a few hours, and maybe take out some of the nervous energy that I'm sure you're feeling right now. Number 1, I am 51 years old. I've made some pretty good salaries in my day. And it hit me last year, especially as I was finding myself with interview after interview, and frankly, after having written a job, not about my employer, but about the experience that I had, that I'm not going to get hired again into a traditional job. I know too much about how organizations work, what culture looks like. I have plenty of organizations that want to talk to me about how to fix them, but even close personal, professional relationships I've had will tell me, look, Pete, you're with what you've done in terms of successful things about offering advice in the workplace, that scares people. There's only so many fits that you may have to find a traditional job, and been told the same thing by recruiters, that bringing me forward would be a challenge for them, in that most leadership does not want someone with a strong, very clear voice about addressing challenging issues in the workplace. So one day I decided and had to move on with it. I probably worked my last job, that 9-to-5 traditional employer job. I would tell some of you, you may be there as well, only you don't know it yet. You may be making way too much money to find a job that would be a natural fit. Some folks may look at you and say, you know what, so-and-so is 20 years older than their manager. That's not good either. They're not going to fit in. They can't teach an old dog new tricks. All these different things that people say that are wrong, but unfortunately we're stuck dealing with. There's ways to overcome all of these different things. But I would tell you, some of you may have worked your last traditional job. But I would tell you, from that should start a process, and you really should be thinking about it now, because there is opportunity out there of spending a little bit of time thinking, you know what? Number 1, what would I do if I can't find another opportunity in 6 months or 12 months? If I go through this process with great groups like this and things aren't working out, what's my world going to look like? That positive kind of daydreaming of, okay, I know I have a passion for management. Maybe for the first time, I need to stick my neck out and do what I've been saying for years. I need to start my own business. Or maybe you need to start thinking about where there's opportunities right now within the workplace to create value, to create an organization where you're going to be the head of it. You're going to be the master of your own destiny, where you don't have to worry about the whims and changes of corporate America in terms of your job. I'm telling you, think about creating your own job. Yes, going through this process and resumes, they're cool and all, but at some point you have to be ready to pull the trigger to find your new opportunity. For me, I found myself after a couple of years, really, of thinking, all right, this next interview is going to work. Maybe the next one. okay, I'm a finalist for this. And I'm getting my hopes up each and every time with this one is going to be the moment. And it wasn't. And I pulled the trigger at some point to decide I'm going to take all of my experience, all the good work that I've done in terms of writing a book, sharing my experience, going out and speaking, that I'm going to take that into the marketplace. And I found a huge void out there for organizations that struggle with their cultures, that are not good at dealing with their people problems. And for me, that was my sweet spot. And I would really encourage you, anybody who is finding themselves today looking for that next opportunity, and maybe I'm either making too much, or I've got a little bit of gray hair these days, or I've always wanted to do my own thing. Think through that seriously and create that plan. And I would frankly tell you, with what I'm seeing out of the workplace these days, if you don't have a plan going into your mid-40s, you haven't done all the legwork that you need to protect your career and protect your future, because there's a lot of churn these days. But there's a lot of people using that churn, understanding that moment that my job, my career that I thought was forever may not be. Use that as fuel. Use those stories and experiences that other people have to understand, I need to think about what my plan B is. I may need to think about what my plan C is. But out of that comes some opportunities. But you don't want to be going through this process that y'all are going through today and not having what I'd call an exit strategy. And that is getting out there, figuring out what you'd want to do if all this great stuff doesn't work out. Man, there's some incredible opportunities out there in the workplace, especially now with what we're seeing with the workplace changing, the voids that are out there in terms of businesses not having certain expertise at various levels in the company. You can do that as an employee, but you can also do that as somebody that's going to bring that service with from your own company's well of talent. Just leaving it out there. For me, it is, if you had ever told me that the worst professional and personal moment of my life was going to turn into an opportunity, I would have told you were crazy. But for me, it has truly turned into something of taking the stuff I learned, what to do and what not to do, and monetizing it and speaking about it, and taking my skills and finding those people that need to purchase them. So with that, and I've gone a few minutes early because I think I see a bunch of comments, and I know there's some questions that we've got as well. This is all my contact information. I am going to give away a copy of my book, The Arsonist in the Office, to you'll see my LinkedIn address down there. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and after this is over, by late morning, I'll pick one of the winners to receive this, and I'll contact you back through LinkedIn. But with that, and Jeff, hopefully I didn't screw up the time too much, but went through this fairly quickly. But I'd be happy to take any questions, and also I need to look and see if there are any questions in the.
Yeah, I've been looking at the chat window. John has a question about culture. What are some good questions to ask to identify the true culture? Most people only say good things about the culture when you're asked. So how do you dig past that?
Sure. Couple things. One, I would, let me say this, and I don't want to sound cynical. Asking the hiring manager why things are so great in the company may not always be your best bet. So I would ask an open-ended question of, tell me what the important values are in this company. Tell me what you like about working here. You're going to get some revealing answers to that question. You may get some awkward pauses that may trigger the bull detector on that. I know I had one where I, in an interview several years ago, asked that question, and it was only me and the HR director in the room because I had asked about culture, and they frankly, true story, said, you know what? I don't know if this is a place you want to work, and I've actually got my resume out. You ask openly, but here's the other thing to do. Don't rely on people whose job it is to bring you in, who may be, they may be bringing you into the best opportunity imaginable. They also may be sucking you in to fill a job that's been filled by 6 other people over the last year and a half. If there's churn there, that's another great thing to ask about. But if there's churn there, you may be just another cog in their wheel. So ask about the culture, yes, but ask other people in the organization about the culture. Do your research online, like I mentioned, because that is where you're going to find the less biased opinions. You're going to see some stuff on, especially with larger companies where they have more reviews, people saying good and bad on any organization, but look for the trends. Look for those signs where you see, okay, this is the 4th time where I'm reading about harassment or that toxic environment. Why do I keep on seeing this again and again and again? And at that point, it's buyer beware. If you want to ignore it, go ahead. But there's lots of other jobs out there. You don't want to walk into a situation where you're wanting to leave, or you're going to be diving under your desk within months of getting there. So find that opportunity and protect yourself.
Yeah, I think your key point there is you need to ask other people beside people you're interviewing with. You need to do informational interviews with other people in the company to ask, hey, what's it like? I'm just considering a position, or I'm considering, I'd like to know if this is a company I should be looking at. So if you can do that, and also remember that, especially in large organizations, the culture in one department may be great and another department may not be so great, just because of the leader of that department. And so the more people you can talk to that are not in that department, hey, what do you hear about the accounting department? What do you hear about the procurement department? I think that really can help guide you a little bit better than asking that question during an interview.
Yeah.
You can ask about corporate culture, but as far as what's the culture like in this department, oh, it's great.
And if great is the only thing they say, watch out, because if it's so great, normally they'd have something to add. Yeah,
Right.
there's and the other thing, frankly, trust your gut. I mean, if you're looking at something and it is something just doesn't seem right, trust your gut. It's simply not worth it to dive into a situation where you're thinking in 6 months, I knew it, and now you're stuck, and somebody is going to call you a job hopper if you leave, and back into the same old grind of trying to find another opportunity. Don't let it happen if you can prevent it.
It's really interesting, sort of interesting personal story. My son just recently, well, in April, he took a new job and he moved from Chicago to San Francisco. And so he's now working for this new company, and they just started going back in the office in the last month or so. And, he's told me a couple times, I just don't think I asked the right questions, because nobody goes out to lunch together. They all just sort of sit in their office. They don't, there is no camaraderie. And, what he had at his old office and what he has at this office is very different. He wanted the new experience, but, he's now added a couple new questions that when he starts looking for a job again next year, because he's not going to do it right now, he wants to wait for a year and a half to get under his belt, that here's some new questions that he will be asking people, specifically about more questions about the culture.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Laura asked, hasn't it gotten better that many people refuse to return to work despite unemployment ending? Hasn't this opened up opportunities for older employees as well, as companies are looking for more long-term employees rather than job hopping millennials?
Probably. You would think, although as humans, we can in theory talk about how we learn from our mistakes, but I don't know if we're always good at that. I'm speaking for myself as well. I can identify what the problem is, but it doesn't mean that I've addressed why the problem happened in the first place. Yeah, it should. But I guess the proof is going to be in the pudding in terms of the value that older workers bring, for instance, because as long as there are insecure people in the hiring process that may be thinking, oh, wow, this is, and I had somebody say this to me that they had this experience in an interview recently where somebody said, the manager said, you kind of remind me of my dad. And, that was really sweet and all, but they quickly found out, that wasn't age discrimination, but how many people want to manage their dad? That reality is out there. Companies are desperate. Yes. Are they learning the right lessons? Beats me.
Yeah, I think it's really up to the hiring manager, what they're willing to do and learn and realize. And quite frankly, I guess if you're working for a 30-year-old manager, you're right, you may not connect if you're in your 50s and 60s, and that 30-year-old manager may just be used to the millennials, leaving quickly. So you just don't know. It's one of those things you have to do research on.
That's right. And I would say therein lies an opportunity for that older worker to do some proactive things to maybe help bridge that gap. One of them being, frankly, the video thing that I mentioned. If you are more, if you appear to be savvy in terms of, you understand social media, you're doing things that people are currently doing in the workplace and have those skills, and you're not pushing it off to, that's, stuff all the new employees know. Be cutting edge. Maybe you can mask some of that concern that the insecure folks have about bringing you in. You may be that person that knows stuff that they don't on technology and what the trends are. Finding those new opportunities, those things that, because you're doing so much reading, you're looking around the corners for what's happening in your field. They're going to be thinking, okay, this person's on it. This person's going to make me look good, rather than have the manager worrying about, is this person going to be fun at the parties, and are they a little bit older than me? Make them look good, and they're not going to care.
Right.
No, I take that back. Some of them will care, and you don't want to work there anyway.
Right. If you have any questions, you're welcome to unmute your mic and ask away. Or if you've got a comment, please unmute your mic and let us know. Deborah.
I have a question. I have two questions. One is the Q&A on presentations recorded, or does the recording stop when the presentation ends?
No, the entire Q&A is being recorded also until we end the session at the end.
Okay. I'm curious, Pete, if looking back at your experience in your last full-time job, if you can see now the moment when you should have left.
Yeah.
Or would you have left knowing that trying to make a difference in the culture wasn't going to make a difference? Great
question. So just to tee it up real quickly, and then I'll go on to both of those and tell me if I missed one in the process, one of your questions in the process. I got hired into a role where I needed a job at that time. The company I was working for had ceased operations, so I needed to find something quickly, and walked into a job that looked phenomenal, salary, benefits, all those kind of things. And they only told me after the fact that I had been hired to work for the employee. And here's the spoiler alert on the title of my book. An employee so toxic, so volatile, so destructive within the organization that they were afraid of what that person might do to them from the outside. So they kept them internal and hired me to take most of that person's role. I instantly became the target, but my assumption had been, and here's where I talk about knowing your culture. My assumption had been, surely if they're telling me that there's a problem, they're willing to address the problem in a serious way if bad things happened. That could have been the point where I jumped, but I really trusted my leadership, frankly, to take care of business. That's what smart people do. And I learned that that is not the case at all, that smart people can also be cowards, that they can have other priorities and that kind of thing. When I should have left, and I will say this, there were several moments in my journey through all the craziness that I could have decided, all right, surely, this is the time to go. I mean, I won't go into them, but they are all notable for how weird they were. But I really thought in the end, my company was going to back me up with what I was looking at, that, okay, I can move on. I'm getting paid well. The benefits are good. And I was doing that constant cost benefits analysis. And when I hit the point where, frankly, and I describe it in the book as a moment where I didn't know whether I needed a talk with my HR department or with law enforcement because of what I had run into, that was really, for me, my breaking point with the organization, in that they realized at that point that things had gotten so crazy with the actions of the arsonist that they had a choice of either risking removing me or dealing with the problem that had scared them in the first place, and that was the rogue employee. So I found myself out of a job. So the company kind of self-selected that decision for me, but there were plenty of points, and this is where my overconfidence in my ability to deal with tough situations and understand my environment, I had way overestimated my ability to analyze things. Because if you're in stressful environments, your snap judgments, really your long-term judgment, is never going to be as good as it would be under normal conditions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else have a question or comment? Going once, going twice?
Well, I have one quick comment, but I think
Okay.
we all know that. I think we all know this. We can't just go on a company's stated values as a determining factor in deciding whether that's the type of culture one should engage in. Because, like my mom always says, there's a difference between what you say and what you do.
And I think that's why it's real important that, you just don't talk to the hiring manager. You just don't talk to the HR department. You've got to, if you're trying to network into a company, you've got to find out what the culture is like in a company. And you have to do some informational interviewing. And that's what Walt's going to talk about next Friday. And then this Wednesday, in the interview Wednesday class, we're going to talk about asking questions and what questions do you ask. So I think those, especially the next two sessions on Wednesday and Friday, I think are going to be very pertinent for anybody who's trying to figure out how do you bring up that subject, and where do you bring that subject up, and who do you bring it up with?
Can I make a couple of comments, Jen?
Yeah, go ahead, Walt.
Number one, Pete, your idea of culture being the premium in the top, I heartily agree. If the culture doesn't fit, the rest doesn't matter. My heartiest recommendations for people to find out culture. Now, let me give you some help on culture. A lot of us are not past the question of define your culture. I mean, that's our culture question, and we just ask them to do that. And Pete's already talked about a little bit different approach to that. So here's what I suggest you do. Go back and look at your best job. Go back and look at the places where you love to work. Describe what it was like to work there. What was leadership like? What values did they actually practice? What principles did they actually practice? So figure out in your own mind what your culture that you would like in a company to be, so that You can then look back and say, okay, well, we operated this way. This is what it took to get things done. This is how teams collaborated. This was how communication took place. This was the typical work week. This was the time of things. We won't ask work balance, work and home balance questions, but we'll ask, what's the typical work week look like? How many hours do people normally work? What is the number of hours that a person works that's a top candidate or expectation? We start asking those kinds of questions because that gets into the meat of the culture. So describe your own culture by looking back and seeing what it is that you value. Then you can start determining questions that get into the specifics that describe the culture and the operations, which Deborah was just talking about. What do they do? Not just what they say. But you take a look at the values. You can ask a question that says, how are the values practiced in the organization? Which values, how does that work? How do we show that kind of thing? So those kind of things that may help you on the culture end.
Great. Bonnie, I see you've unmuted your mic. Do you have a question or a comment?
I do. Obviously, Pete, I've not yet read your book, but I will. Is the assumption by the purpose of the book that in your consulting business that you're able to actually help and direct these organizations that you're employed by to fix their toxic cultures?
I talk some about that and what leaders can do to impact the culture. I mean, to a certain extent, while we can be that good person, while we can be helpful, while we can be the valuable employee at lower levels of the organization, culture is frankly it's the responsibility of the ultimate responsibility of leaders. They can change it, they can fix it. Unfortunately, while we can make our environments better, and Jeff talked about that great statement about some departments are better than others or worse than others. Ultimately, leaders are going to decide. So the book talks about it, and I talk about this with organizations, especially when I'm talking with the leaders of them, is they've got a responsibility to make things productive, to make things successful, if you want people to stick around for the long run, here are things that work. Here are things that don't work. And here's the behaviors that you've got to draw the line on. And I talk about a bunch of those, but and I hope I'm answering this right. My book is kind of a guide for all levels, that person that is in the midst of the fire, whether you're in management leadership or you just got hired into a company, to tell you what you ought to be looking for, kind of a battlefield guide. But yeah, it's also, and this is what I dive into now with my consulting work, is organizations that frankly should know better, but simply don't, or are tagging along on what decades long track records of other leaders set up, and now they're stuck with it. And they can either decide, when I say stuck with it, they can either decide to change it or just keep it rolling down the same hill and watch the same problems taking place. So it's kind of to help both.
I see. So is it your primary assumption then that the culture does come from top down?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. That's been my experience, but I just want to know if we were simpatico on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
All right, there was a question in the chat box. The problem could be that you got hired with one boss and then they may have been quickly let go, or they had a restructure, and then you end up with a very different boss and a different culture that's far from favorable. What do you do then? Especially if you just got started in a job, I'll tell you a quick story. We had a person in this Friday group many years ago. She landed her dream job. She was an athlete. She worked out a lot, and she got a job with a exercise athletic kind of company. And 3 weeks after she got the job, the person who hired her got laid off. They brought in somebody new, and this person came in and laid off everybody in the department because he wanted to bring in his people. And she came back just sort of in tears, and it's just like, well, this isn't at all your fault. When you get a new manager, or when your manager leaves, the person who hired you, who liked you, that's a problem. It could be a problem.
The one thing there that I hear in that story is you are, well, it stinks when you're in that situation, when you have a reasonable story to tell and you are not bashing the company while doing it, but talking about a situation people clearly understand. It can be helpful rather than folks being nervous about jumping into that next interview. Clearly stating, started this job, here's what took place. You know, everybody's either been there or knows somebody who's run into it.
Yeah, I know one of the jobs I had, I was laid off. The person who hired me and was there for like a year and a half, finally left the company. And then within 6 months, you know, they didn't replace that person. So I then reported to a person higher up, and he never hired me and he never had to really deal with me. And so, you know, and this was right around 9/11. So then they were reducing heads count. And so off I went because I didn't get hired by the hired person. So, you know, those kinds of things happen. Companies restructure all the time, especially nowadays. And like you said, a lot of people have gone through it and they understand it. Any other questions? Russ?
Yeah, I was just curious, Pete. I mean, I've worked in my fair share of toxic cultures. I'm just curious, when you go into a company, is the management, like, I don't know how to say it, are they like willing to own up to maybe how bad their culture is, you know, as opposed to just kind of maybe soft pedaling it? Because ultimately, if there's like, you know, despite the overwhelming evidence of turnover, people leaving, because ultimately, I mean, it reflects badly on them because again, they're responsible for creating the culture.
Yeah, there's a lot of management that is that you've got the management at times that is that's part of the problem. Then you've got the managers that are just trying to survive as well, and they may be looking at the leadership who's making things worse, and they're stuck having to guide their department through, you know, making it as less bad as possible. That's a tough position to watch. And of course, when you see management check out, either mentally or just, I should say, organizationally, with them not feeling motivated by a positive culture, you see the employees checking out, and of course that starts leading to attrition at all levels. Yeah, unfortunately, it's that you know, what rolls downhill is a positive thing.
Yeah, because where I've been, despite like they do these yearly employee, you know, opinion surveys and how this, and you know, despite what they show, I mean, they've always kind of shlucked it off as, well, we're still good. It's just individual people with bad attitudes. You know, that's how they, you know, explained it away.
Yep. Yeah, it's much like a virus or a cancer or anything else that it spreads. I guess good news is a good culture can spread too and motivate people and influence behavior, but negative side works exactly the same.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? We have time for one more question. Anybody else would like to ask anything? Yeah, I think sometimes you just have bad managers. You know, the Peter principle, they've been promoted up to a certain level, and they get, you know, where they just don't appreciate their employees, and they just don't want to know what the culture is. It's just do the job or not. Last night, I happened to be watching, I was flipping through TV on Ice Pilots, which is a show. It's on the Weather Channel, and the guy who runs the place is a real not likable kind of person. And so it's 45 degrees below zero, and this is up in northern Canada. And the one of his pilots had a water leak because it was so cold in their house. They had a leak, and he's under his thing trying to do it. And the guy who owns the firm calls up the pilot going, if you're not here by 12 o'clock noon today, get your plane up and going. Don't even think about coming in tomorrow. And the guy says, you know, and this employee goes and says, you know, you don't know how many times he's called me up and threatened me like this. I guess one of these days he's going to mean it. And it's just like, bad management. Take it, and other employers are going, yeah, I really need to look for something else. This place just really isn't great. It's just like, and that's on TV. I mean, that's got to say something for a company.
Jeff, can I add one last thought?
Yeah.
Touched on it in a minute. I wanted to mention it as a question to ask, and it's one where you're almost sucking up to the hiring manager at the same time as getting good intel from them. And one of the symptoms of bad cultures in a lot of organizations can be that management is created by people doing well in one role, and say you're a top salesman, and okay, you're moved into, you're now managing this team, and you may be the worst human being, the worst leader. You may hate people, and you become the leader of this team, and you suck all the energy out of it, and you may not have even wanted this job, but it was the path to success within your company, and so you took it. I would ask these hiring managers how they got into their role and what type of training they received to get to where they are today. And if there's not training and leadership opportunities that are being offered there, that's a short-sighted company. And that is the start. And I'll make this story really quick. So I mentioned I talk with law enforcement a lot and helping them fix their cultural issues. And of course, we've seen a bunch of those play out in the media, right? And in the news constantly with struggles. So there are all sorts of different levels from the police chief on down, but there's the level of sergeant. It's the first line of supervisors for all the officers you see on the street. They're those managers, and how those sergeants how the officers become sergeants, move up, is they take a test. The test talks about the skills it takes. There's nothing in it about questions about, hey, tell me about your experiences leading people. How have you dealt with, have you ever managed teams? Have you done any of these things? Now it's only about how they've done their job previously and how well they scored on this one test. And that can be a real problem, in that if you've got somebody who is there for power reasons, for anything but moving up to become a leader of people, you've got potential challenges there. And we see some of those things play out in communities when you have somebody put in a power that either goes against the values of the department or is not training their people, coaching their people to become better. They're just kind of letting them go, and they're just taking the paycheck. That happens in companies too. Your traditional corporation of how that happens, and bad things can happen from there. So that question about hey manager, how did you get to where you were? You can learn from that.
Deborah, did you have a comment? I see you unmuted your mic.
I do have a comment in relation to this topic, because it's a topic that has resonated with me in ways that I won't go into. In addition to Pete's book, I would highly recommend people read the book Power by Jeffrey Pfeiffer, because it's going to make you angry, and it's going to bring up all kinds of emotions. But if you process that information in that book, it's going to give you a pragmatic lens with which to look at organizations at. And the subtitle is Power, Why Some People Have It and Others Don't. And one of the things that has always stayed in my mind from that book is good performance won't save you if your manager doesn't like you. Bad performance won't matter if he or she does. And what goes around is not going to come around, and it's not always going to equal out fairly. And it's just a book that hits so many of the things that Pete has talked about as being red flags. And it'll just give you a lens on even how to manage yourself within the environment once you get in it.
Great stuff. Great book.
Oh, great. All right. Well, Pete, thank you very much for your time today. Great information. Like you said, if you're interested, please reach out to Pete on LinkedIn if you'd like to possibly win a copy of his book. Link in with him. When you do link in with him, be sure to send a personal request, personal note. Let him know who you are, that you saw him here today, so he knows why you're reaching out to him. Next Friday, our speaker is going to be Walt Glass. We'll talk about information and interviewing. This is another great way how to find out culture and how to talk about those things. So you'll be able to join us again next Friday for that. If you have not put your 30-second introductions into the Zoom chat window, please do so. For those on Facebook, please put it in the comment field. I will go and I will delete that information. For those on Facebook, I'll delete it so it won't be hanging out there forever and ever. Please join Career DFW and Career USA. We're putting on training 4 days a week. Next Tuesday, our speaker is Ruth Lipsky on LinkedIn Tuesday. She'll talk about LinkedIn search engine optimization. On Wednesday, as we've mentioned before, interviewing Wednesdays will be on session number 8, asking questions in the interview. Next Thursday, it's the 4th Thursday of the month, so Bob Marher, a certified coach, will be with us to talk about taking the chill out of cold calls. And this is all about networking. This session has been recorded. It is going to be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. On the YouTube channel, be sure to click on playlist, and then down below, pick whichever list you like: resumes, interviewing, LinkedIn, North Dallas, Plano. Don't click on the video, but click down below where it says view full playlist, and then up will come a list of all the different topics and titles and dates, and you can go scan down and find whichever one it is you'd like to view. If you don't have the newest one on top, click the little sort button as you see right there on the top, and it'll pull the videos up to the very, very top, the newest one on top. Thank you for joining us today, everybody. Have a great weekend. Pete, once again, thank you very, very much, and we'll see everybody next week. What are you doing for lunch today, Walt?
I give up. What am I doing?
I don't know. How was that concert last week or 2 weeks ago?
Well, the concert I went to was really good. Clint Black, he can sing and he's got lots of good stuff.
Well, I thought you went to see a comedian.
Okay, that was a disaster. It was Ron White, and I was expecting what I've seen of him on YouTube. The most vulgar, foul language person that I can think of.
Wow.
It was terrible. My daughter was with me, sitting next to me watching it, and she leaned over about 10 minutes into it. She said, "I'm surprised you and Debbie are still here." And I asked Debbie like 3 times, if we can get up and go anytime you want. She said, "No, I'll just wait it out for the benefit of being with